I never thought I'd be the kind of grandmother who ended up in court, testifying against her own grandson. But life has a way of taking you places you never imagined, down roads you'd have sworn you'd never walk. My name is Margaret. I'm 73 years old, and for most of my life, I've been what people call the strong one. I raised 3 children on a teacher's salary after my husband died young. I put all of them through college. I volunteered at the church, baked for every fundraiser, and never missed a single one of my grandchildren's birthdays. I was the glue, they said, the rock, but even rocks can break. It started on a Tuesday morning in late October. I remember because the maple tree outside my kitchen window had just turned that brilliant shade of crimson I'd loved for 50 years in that house. I was making coffee when I heard the knock at the back door. Not the front, the back. That should have told me something right there. It was Tyler, my oldest grandson, my daughter Rebecca's boy, 26 years old, with his father's dark eyes and his mother's sweet smile. The child I'd rocked to sleep 1,000 times, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose tears I'd dried when his parents divorced. "Grandma," he said, and his voice cracked in that way that used to make my heart melt. "Can I come in?" I opened the door without hesitation. That's what you do for family. That's what I'd always done. He looked thin, too thin. His clothes hung off him like they belonged to someone else, and there were dark circles under his eyes I pretended not to notice. I'd heard the rumors, of course. Rebecca had called me in tears more than once, saying Tyler was mixed up with the wrong crowd, that he'd lost his job, that he was asking her for money she didn't have. "Come in, sweetheart," I said. "Have you eaten? Let me make you some breakfast." He followed me inside, and I busied myself with the familiar rhythm of cracking eggs, buttering toast. Small acts of love that grandmothers have performed since the beginning of time. I wanted to believe that a hot meal could fix whatever was broken in him. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped him with his homework, where we'd played Monopoly on rainy afternoons. He ate like he was starving, barely looking up, and I watched him with a mixture of relief and worry. "Tyler," I said gently, "your mother tells me you've been having some trouble." He stopped chewing, set down his fork. "I'm fine, Grandma. You don't look fine, honey. I just need a little help, just to get back on my feet." And there it was, the real reason for the visit. "How much do you need?" He named a figure that made my stomach drop. $5,000. It might as well have been $1 million. I lived on Social Security and a small pension. My savings had been slowly dwindling for years, stretched across medical bills and home repairs and the rising cost of everything. "Tyler, I don't have that kind of money." His face changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. The warmth drained from his eyes, replaced by something colder, harder. "You have this house," he said. "I can't sell my house, sweetheart." "Where would I live?" "You could take out a loan, use it as collateral." I felt my heart squeeze. "Tyler, what's this really about? Are you in trouble?" "I just need the money, Grandma." His voice had an edge now. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. We went back and forth for nearly an hour. I tried to understand, tried to help in other ways. I offered to call Rebecca, to talk to a counselor at the church who helped people with debt problems. But he didn't want any of that. He wanted money, cash, fast. Finally, when it was clear I wasn't going to give him what he wanted, he stood up. His chair scraped harshly against the floor. "You're just like everyone else," he said, full of words but no actual help. "Tyler, that's not fair. I thought family was supposed to be there for each other." The words stung because they were the same ones I'd used raising my children. Be there for each other. Family first. Always. "I am here for you," I said, standing up too, reaching for his arm. "But not like this. Let me help you the right way." He jerked away from me, and in that moment, I saw something in his eyes that frightened me. It wasn't my grandson looking back at me. It was a stranger. "I need that money," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "And you're going to give it to me." Tyler, he moved so fast I didn't have time to react. His hand shot out and shoved me backward. I stumbled, my hip catching the edge of the kitchen counter. Pain exploded through my side as I fell, my body hitting the floor with a sickening thud. The world tilted. I couldn't breathe. Every attempt to draw air felt like knives in my chest. Tyler stood over me, And for a second, just a second, I saw fear flash across his face. The old Tyler, the boy I knew, looking horrified at what he'd just done, but then it was gone. "Where do you keep your checkbook?" he demanded. I couldn't speak, could barely see through the tears of pain streaming down my face. He started opening drawers, rifling through my things with rough, frantic movements. I heard him in the other room searching. The pain was so intense I thought I might pass out. I tried to call out, but only a weak gasp came out. He came back with my purse, dumped it on the floor next to me, grabbed my wallet. "There's only 300 here," he said, and he sounded angry, like I'd personally wronged him. "Where's the rest?" "Tyler, please." He crouched down close to my face. "I'm in serious trouble, Grandma. These people don't play games. I need money, and I need it now. I don't have." He made a frustrated sound and stood up. I heard him going through the house, pulling out drawers, opening closets. At some point, he must have found the small metal box where I kept emergency cash. $200. Money I'd been saving in case the furnace went out. When he came back, he looked down at me on the floor, and I saw him hesitate. Saw a flicker of the child I'd loved. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he said quietly. "I didn't mean. I just need you to understand." Then he left through the back door. The same way he'd come, I lay there on the cold kitchen floor for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Each breath was agony. I knew something was badly wrong. The pain wasn't fading. It was getting worse. Finally, I managed to drag myself to where my phone had fallen from my purse. I called 911. The paramedics found me still on the floor. I remember the young woman who held my hand, her voice soothing as she told me I was going to be okay, that I'd done the right thing by calling T the hospital. The X-rays revealed 3 broken ribs and a bruised kidney. The doctor, a kind man with gray hair, looked at me with concern. "Mrs. Patterson, what happened?" "I fell," I said automatically. He studied me for a long moment. "These injuries are consistent with significant force trauma." "If someone hurt you, I fell," I repeated. Because what was I supposed to say? That my grandson had done this? That the boy I'd raised, who I'd loved more than my own comfort and safety, had shoved me to the ground and robbed me? I couldn't say it. Not out loud. Not to a stranger. They admitted me for 2 days. Rebecca came, of course, frantic and crying. She'd been called by the hospitals since she was my emergency contact. "Mom, what happened? You have to tell me." I wanted to protect her. She'd been through so much with Tyler already. Years of broken promises and lies and disappointment. "I'm just clumsy, honey," I said. Got dizzy and fell. But Rebecca knew me too well. "Mom, please." Maybe it was the pain medication. Or maybe I was just too tired to keep lying. "It was Tyler." The color drained from her face. "No, he came asking for money." I said no. "He pushed me." Rebecca sat down heavily in the chair beside my bed, her hand over her mouth. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I'm calling the police," she finally said. No, the word came out sharper than I intended. "Rebecca, he's your son. Our family, our family." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Mom, he broke your ribs. He robbed you. He left you on the floor. That's not family. That's a crime." We argued, as much as we could with me barely able to move. But Rebecca was her mother's daughter, stubborn and fierce when she needed to be. She called the police from my hospital room, and within hours, 2 officers came to take my statement. Telling them what happened was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every word felt like a betrayal. But I told them the truth. Even though my voice shook, even though tears ran down my face. Tyler was arrested 3 days later. They found him at a friend's apartment, the money already gone. Drugs, they said. He needed it for drugs and to pay off a debt to his dealer. The boy I'd known was disappearing into someone I didn't recognize piece by piece. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 months later. In that time, I went home to my empty house, every corner full of memories that now felt tainted. My ribs healed slowly, painfully, but the emotional wounds felt deeper. Rebecca visited every day. She'd bring soup, help me with things I couldn't do, sit with me in silence when words felt impossible. My other 2 children called regularly, their voices full of sympathy and anger on my behalf. "You should have told us sooner," my son James said. "We could have helped. We could have done something." But what could anyone have done? Tyler had been on this path for years, making choices no one could unmake for him. The worst part was the nights. Lying in bed in the dark, I'd replay that morning over and over. What if I'd said something different? What if I'd somehow gotten through to him? What if the last version of Tyler I'd seen, angry and desperate and violent, was all that was left? Rebecca insisted I press charges. The district attorney said that without my testimony, they'd have to drop the case to a misdemeanor: theft, maybe trespassing, but assault on a vulnerable adult, elder abuse, felony robbery, those required me to stand up in court and tell the world what my grandson had done. "I can't," I told Rebecca one evening. We were sitting in my living room, the October sun setting outside. "Mom, if you don't, he'll do it again. If not to you, then to someone else. He's sick. He needs help. Not prison. He can get help in prison. There are programs. But he has to face consequences first. Real consequences." I thought about the Tyler I'd known. The little boy who'd cried when his hamster died. Who'd always shared his Halloween candy with his little sister. Who'd written me a poem for my birthday when he was 8 that I still had tucked in my Bible. Was that boy really gone? The prosecutor, a woman named Lisa Chen, came to my house to prepare me for the hearing. She was professional but warm, with intelligent eyes that didn't miss much. "I want you to understand what we're facing," she said. "Tyler's attorney is going to argue that this was a misunderstanding, that you fell during an argument, that he didn't intend to hurt you. They'll paint you as a confused elderly woman who's misremembering events." The characterization stung, but I understood. That's how the system worked. "Do you have any evidence besides your testimony?" I shook my head. "Just what the doctors documented. The injuries." Lisa looked disappointed but not surprised. "The defense will say those could have happened in a simple fall. Without witnesses or physical evidence of assault, it becomes your word against his." That night, I barely slept. The hearing was in 3 days, and I felt completely unprepared to sit in a courtroom and accuse my own flesh and blood. But then something unexpected happened. Rebecca called me the morning before the hearing, her voice strange. "Mom, you need to come over now. I found something." I drove to her house slowly, still favoring my healing ribs. She met me at the door with her laptop, her face pale. "I was going through Tyler's things," she said. "Stuff he'd left here before he moved out. I found this thumb drive hidden in an old showbox." She opened the laptop, and I watched as she pulled up a folder full of video files. The dates went back months. "What is this?" I think Tyler was documenting something. Maybe for insurance. Maybe as leverage. I don't know. "But Mom, look at this one." She clicked on a file dated the day of the assault. The video loaded, and I felt my blood turn cold. It was footage from inside my kitchen. The angle suggested a phone propped up somewhere, maybe on the counter near the coffee maker. And there, in grainy but unmistakable clarity, was everything that had happened that morning. Tyler at the table. Our conversation. His face hardening when I said no. The argument escalating. And then there, captured on video, Tyler standing up, moving toward me, shoving me backward with both hands. You could see me fall. See me hit the counter and crumple to the floor. See the way I couldn't get up, the way I curled around my injured side. And then Tyler, methodically searching my house while I lay there helpless. The video even caught audio. His voice, cold and threatening. "I need that money, and you're going to give it to me." My voice, weak and pleading. "Tyler, please." The entire assault. Documented, undeniable. Rebecca was crying. Why would he record this? I couldn't answer. My hands were shaking as I watched a person I loved most in the world commit a crime against me. Captured in digital permanence. "We have to give this to the prosecutor," Rebecca said. I nodded, unable to speak. Lisa Chen couldn't believe it when we showed her the video the next day, just hours before the hearing. "This changes everything," she said. "This is irrefutable evidence. With this, he can't claim it was an accident or that you're misremembering. Why would he record himself?" I asked, still trying to understand. Lisa shook her head. People in active addiction don't always think clearly. Maybe he was going to use it to prove he tried to get money legally before resorting to other means. Maybe he was documenting his own decline. We may never know. The courtroom the next morning was smaller than I'd imagined. Tyler sat at the defense table with his attorney, a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit. Tyler had cleaned up, his hair was cut. He wore a shirt and tie, and he looked more like the grandson I remembered, but when his eyes met mine, I saw no recognition, no remorse, just a flat, empty stare. The hearing began with the usual formalities. The charges were read. Tyler entered a plea of not guilty to all counts. Then it was time for testimony. I took the stand, my heart hammering. The prosecutor led me through the events of that day gently, asking me to describe what happened in my own words. I told the story, my voice breaking in places, tears rolling down my face at others. Tyler's attorney cross-examined me, just as Lisa had warned. He suggested I was confused, that my grandson had only been trying to steady me when I fell, that my memory might be affected by age and trauma. Isn't it possible, Mrs. Patterson, that you simply fell during an emotional conversation, and you're now misinterpreting my client's attempt to help you? No, I said firmly. He pushed me. He robbed me. He left me on the floor. The attorney looked skeptical, playing to the judge. With all due respect, Your Honor, we have only my client's elderly grandmother's testimony. Actually, Lisa Chen interrupted, standing up. We have more than that. She approached a bench with a tablet. The prosecution would like to enter new evidence. Video documentation of the assault recorded by the defendant himself. The courtroom went silent. Tyler's face went white. His attorney jumped up. Your Honor, we weren't informed of any video evidence. This is highly irregular. The evidence was only discovered yesterday, Lisa explained. We're providing it now in the interest of justice and transparency. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, considered. I'll allow it, but I want to see this video before we proceed. They set up a screen where the judge could view it. I watched her face as she watched that terrible morning unfold. Watched her expression harden with each passing second. When it finished, she looked at Tyler with cold eyes. Do the defense counsel wish to view this evidence? Tyler's attorney looked at Tyler, whose face had gone from white to gray. He shook his head slowly. Defeated, Your Honor, the attorney said, his voice much quieter now. Might we request a brief recess to consult with our client? The recess lasted 20 minutes. When we returned, Tyler's attorney stood immediately. Your Honor, after reviewing the new evidence, my client wishes to change his plea to guilty on all counts. The words hung in the air. Guilty. My grandson. Pleading guilty to assaulting me, to robbing me, to leaving me broken on the floor. I should have felt vindicated, relieved. Something, instead. I felt empty. The judge addressed Tyler directly. Mr. Brennan, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're admitting to committing these crimes against your grandmother? Tyler stood on shaking legs. Yes, Your Honor. And you're doing this of your own free will? Yes. Is there anything you'd like to say before I consider sentencing? This was the moment where, in my dreams, Tyler would turn to me with tears in his eyes and apologize, where he'd become that little boy again and I'd know he could be saved. But Tyler didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. No, Your Honor, he said quietly. The judge was not gentle. She'd seen the video. She'd heard my testimony. And she'd clearly seen enough, Mr. Brennan. What you did to your grandmother is one of the most despicable things I've seen in this courtroom. You exploited a relationship of trust. You physically assaulted a 73-year-old woman who loved you and wanted only to help you. You stole from her, and then you left her injured and alone. Tyler's shoulders began to shake. The first real emotion I'd seen from him. Elder abuse is a serious crime, and it demands serious consequences. I'm sentencing you to 5 years in state prison with mandatory drug treatment and counseling. You will also be required to pay restitution to your grandmother for her medical expenses and the money you stole. 5 years. The number echoed in my head. Furthermore, the judge continued, you are prohibited from any contact with the victim, your grandmother, unless she specifically requests it and I approve. It was over. Just like that, it was done. They led Tyler away in handcuffs. As he passed my seat, he finally looked at me. And in that look, I saw everything. Shame, grief, regret, and something that might have been a desperate plea for forgiveness. But it was too late. Much too late. I started crying then. Not tears of relief, but of profound sadness. Rebecca wrapped her arms around me, and we held each other while the courtroom emptied around us. Lisa Chen approached us afterward. "You did the right thing," she said. "You held him accountable. That's the first step toward him getting real help." I wanted to believe her. That night, back in my house, I sat in my kitchen and looked at the spot where I'd fallen. Rebecca had wanted me to move, to sell and start fresh somewhere else. But this was my home. I'd raised my children here, celebrated holidays here, mourned my husband here. I wouldn't let what Tyler did take that away from me. The months that followed were strange. I healed, physically at least. The pain faded to a dull ache, then to just a memory. I started attending a support group for victims of family violence, something I never imagined I'd need. But sitting in that circle of people who understood, who'd been betrayed by the people they loved most, I found a kind of peace. Rebecca checked on me constantly, probably more than I needed, but I didn't mind. James and my daughter Susan called every week. My other grandchildren visited, their faces full of confusion and sadness over what their cousin had done. I didn't talk to Tyler. Couldn't. The judge's order prohibited it. But even if it hadn't, I don't know what I would have said. 6 months into his sentence, I got a letter from the prison. Tyler had written to me. The letter sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. "Dear Grandma, I know I have no right to write to you, no right to ask anything from you ever again. But my counselor says that making amends is part of recovery, and I need to try. I was high that morning I came to your house. I'd been high for weeks, maybe months. Everything felt like it was closing in on me. And I thought if I just had money, I could fix everything. I could make the fear go away. I didn't plan to hurt you. I know that doesn't matter. I know that doesn't change anything. But I need you to know that the second I pushed you, the second I saw you fall, something broke inside me. Not enough to stop me from taking the money. The drugs had me too deep for that, but enough that I've barely slept since. I see your face every night, hear your voice. I remember every story you ever told me, every time you picked me up from school, every birthday cake you baked. I remember who you were to me, what you gave me, how you loved me even when I didn't deserve it. And I threw it all away for money I spent in 2 days on poison that's slowly killing me. I'm getting clean now, really clean, for the first time in years. It's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Some days I think I can't make it. But then I remember what I did to you. And I know I have to. I have to become someone worthy of your memory. Even if you never forgive me, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know that I remember who you are, who I was, and I'm trying, every single day, to find my way back to being someone you could have loved. Your grandson. Tyler read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. Rebecca was with me when I opened it, and she read over my shoulder. "Do you believe him?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to. Part of me is too scared to hope." "You don't have to decide anything now," she said. "You don't know him anything." She was right. I didn't know Tyler anything. He'd taken enough from me. But here's the thing about love, about family, about the bonds that tie us together even when they're stretched to breaking. They don't disappear just because we want them to. I was angry at Tyler, hurt by him. Sometimes in my darkest moments, I thought I hated him, but I also remembered the boy who'd held my hand during thunderstorms, who'd asked me to teach him how to bake my apple pie, who'd cried in my arms when his parents' marriage fell apart. That boy was still in there somewhere. The letter proved it. I wrote back, just a short note. "Tyler, I received your letter. I'm glad you're getting help. That's what I wanted for you all along. I can't say I forgive you yet. I don't know if I ever will. What you did changed me in ways I'm still trying to understand. But I want you to know that I'm praying for you. Every night, I pray that you find your way back to yourself. Not for me, for you. Keep working on your recovery. Be honest with your counselors. Do the hard work. That's all I can say right now." Grandma mailed it the next day. Before I could change my mind, over the next year, more letters came. Tyler told me about his therapy sessions, about learning to understand addiction, about making amends with other people he'd hurt. He never asked to see me, never pressed for more than I was willing to give. The letters were his way of showing me he was changing, and I began to see that change in his words. The selfishness faded, the manipulation disappeared. What remained was something raw and real, a person confronting the worst parts of himself and trying to build something better. I started writing back more regularly. Not often, maybe once every few months, but enough to let him know I was reading, that I heard him. Rebecca worried I was setting myself up to be hurt again. Maybe I was, but I'd spent enough of my life being afraid. I'd been the strong one, the rock, the person who held everyone together. Maybe it was time to let myself be human, vulnerable and uncertain, and willing to risk pain for the possibility of healing. Tyler was released after 3.5 years. Time off for good behavior and completion of the prison's drug treatment program. I didn't go to meet him, wasn't ready for that. But Rebecca did, and she called me afterward. He looks different, Mom, she said. Older, clearer. He asked about you. What did you tell him? That you need time, that you might always need time. And he said he understood. Another 6 months passed. I continued with my life, my support group, my church activities, my weekly dinners with Rebecca and her family. I was learning to be okay with uncertainty, with the fact that some things don't resolve neatly, that some wounds scar instead of heal. Then, last spring, I got a phone call. Tyler's voice, tentative and scared. Grandma, it's me. I know I'm not supposed to call, but I wanted to ask, would it be okay if I came by? Not to the house. Maybe we could meet somewhere public. I'd like to see you, if you're willing. My first instinct was to say no to protect myself, but something in his voice stopped me. Okay, I heard myself say. There's a diner on Main Street. We could meet there. We set a date for the following Saturday at noon. I told Rebecca, who insisted on sitting at a nearby table, close enough to intervene if needed but far enough to give us privacy. I got there early, my stomach in knots. I ordered coffee I couldn't drink and watched the door. Tyler arrived exactly on time. He looked different. Like Rebecca had said, he'd gained weight, healthy weight. His eyes were clear. He moved differently, less frantic energy, more deliberate. He saw me and stopped, his face crumpling with emotion. Then he walked slowly to my booth and stood there uncertain. Hi, Grandma. Sit down, Tyler. He sat across from me, his hands clasped on the table. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. You look well, I finally said. I'm working. Construction. It's hard work, but it's honest. I'm clean. 18 months now. That's good. I'm glad. Another silence. Then Tyler's eyes filled with tears. I am so sorry, he whispered. I know I've said it before, in letters, but I need to say it to your face. I am so sorry for what I did to you. There's no excuse, no justification. I hurt you in ways I can never take back, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I felt my own tears starting. Tyler, no, please. Let me finish. He took a shaky breath. I'm in therapy, real therapy, and I've been learning about the person I became, the choices I made. I blamed everyone but myself for so long. But what I did to you, that was all me. My choice. My crime. You were sick. I said quietly. I was. But I'm learning that addiction doesn't excuse what I did. It explains it, but it doesn't excuse it. And I need to own that. We talked for over an hour. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in years. He told me about his recovery, about the group homes he'd lived in, about the sponsor who'd become like a father to him, about the other man in his recovery program who'd helped him see himself clearly. I told him about my life, about the support group, about learning to feel safe in my own home again. Do you think? He started, then stopped. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I considered the question carefully. I don't know, I said honestly. Some days I think I already have. Other days, I'm still so angry I can barely breathe. Forgiveness isn't a switch I can flip. It's more like a door I'm slowly opening, inch by inch. He nodded, accepting. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, maybe not. I reached across the table and put my hand over his. He looked at it in shock, then up at my face. You're still my grandson, Tyler. What you did was terrible. It broke something between us that might never be completely fixed. But you're still family. And I want to see you become the person you're capable of being. Tyler started crying then. Really crying. And I moved to his side of the booth and held him while he shook with sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded. Rebecca watched from her table, tears streaming down her face too. That was 6 months ago. Tyler and I meet once a month now, always at the diner, always with Rebecca nearby. We talk about his life, his recovery, his goals. He's taking classes at community college. He's dating a woman he met in his recovery group who understands his past. He's building a life piece by piece. And I'm watching cautiously, hopefully, still protecting my heart but allowing space for the possibility that people can change, that redemption is real. I don't know how this story ends. Maybe there isn't an ending, just a continuation. Maybe forgiveness isn't a destination but a journey we take together, one careful step at a time. What I do know is this: love and pain can exist in the same space. You can be hurt by someone and still hope for their healing. You can protect yourself and still leave the door open a crack. Tyler will never be that little boy again. I'll never forget what he did to me. But maybe, just maybe, we can both become something new, something born from brokenness but stronger for having been broken. I still keep his letters in a box in my closet. Sometimes when I'm feeling uncertain, I read them and remember how far he's come. How far we've both come. And on particularly hard days, when my ribs ache from old injuries or I feel the weight of what happened, I sit in my kitchen with my coffee and watch the maple tree outside my window turn red with the season. That tree has stood through storms that broke branches and winters that killed weaker trees. But every spring, it blooms again. Every fall, it turns that brilliant crimson. It bends. It breaks, but it survives. And so do I. So does Tyler. And maybe, in the end, that's enough.